Blender right here. Go full screen. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to be making a low poly world. So let's go into the shading. And the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to create that sky texture. Now I'm going to go pretty fast with this one because we already covered this in a previous one. So let's go into render. We have here, we're going to go into world. Move this guy to the side. Shift A, search texture coordinate. Shift A, search mapping. Shift A, search mapping. Have this guy go down. Rotation 90. This one negative 90. Generator goes to vector. Shift A, search gradient texture. Go Shift D, gradient texture. Shift A, search, and we want a map range. So we have results. I believe we can go right here. It's the value. Go. Value. Max. Okay. So this one should be 0.5. This should be 0. This one should be 0 to 0.5. Shift A, search math. Let's combine them. Shift A, search, we want gradient. Oops, sorry, Shift A, search, we want color. Ramp. Let's add another one right here. Make it blue so we can actually tell it's in the correct location. And then connect to the color. So that's white up top, black on the bottom. So there we go. So that is how we can create the basic node setup for the sky. Let's just move this guy over a little bit. So here it is. So I'm just going to hover over it. So you want to have your node set up to look like this. Okay. And now, of course, let's go in here. Let's change this to a brownish color. Okay. Here. Let's do Shift A, mesh plane, S, scale it out. Looks pretty good. You have the white here, change it to a darker blue. This guy needs to be kind of like a cyan color. And plus, move it over here. Change it to a lighter blue. There we go, something like that. Looks pretty decent. Now we have this little light right here. Let's delete that guy, Shift A, and what we want to add is a sun. That's pretty good. Let's go to the color, change the color to maybe a bit of a yellow. Go into the camera. Let's go click on the camera, the little box, R, X, X. You're gonna double tap X. Now GZ. Go down. Oops. RXX. And that looks pretty good. So the next thing we want to do is we want to make this look like into an environment. So the way we can do that is we're going to go into the modifiers, add modifier, want subdivision surface, want simple, Let's change it to, let's say, 10. And if your viewport can't handle that, you can always just do something lower, like 5. We're going to add another modifier, and we want a, let's see, an ocean. Let's change the scale a little bit. Oh, that's right. We don't need a subdivision for the ocean because the ocean modifier already has a subdivision. Or earlier versions of Blender, that wasn't the case. All right, so let's kind of make some like hills. So that's the size of it. Depth, time. Let's do spatial size. Oops. That looks pretty good. That kind of looks like a bunch of mountains. Let's click G here. Go to camera view, G. You can see wireframe. Click the cube, G, S, scale it down, solid. And that looks pretty good. So let's RZ, rotate it a little bit. G. There you go. Let's do tab, Control R, 2, GZ, Control R, so just basic house. Control R, 2, 3, E, GZ, SZ, tab. And let's save this. So we're going to do low poly art. And we want to save this in a safe location. Save. All right, that looks pretty good. Now, if we go into render, that looks pretty decent. Real quick, let's change this to, let's say, a grass. We're going to do new material. And let's do kind of like a greenish color. That looks pretty good. Maybe a bit darker. And then we want to change, because we have that glare. So that's specular. It's just a little bit, not too much. And I like that. That's pretty decent. So real quick, what we're going to do is we're going to do Shift D, and we're just going to move these houses to different locations. Just a bunch of random little houses. D. G, Shift C. Z. Camera view. And let's just do G. That looks good. I like that because now if we move the camera up, we can see a bunch of houses. Oh, you know what? Let's make a sunset. Let's change this guy to be a kind of like an orangish color. There we go. And then that looks like a sunset or a sunrise, depending on what you personally like. Of course, that means the shadow needs to change. So let's do R, R, G, camera. If I do G, we go up. And yeah, that looks like a sunrise. So that looks pretty good. So that's how we can very quickly just make a kind of a low poly world. Now, the very last thing I want to show you is, let's say we want to add, some trees in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Shift A, Mesh, Cube, S, GZ, zoom into it, GZ, G, GZ, let's do S, Tab, click 3, click on the very top of it, GZ, okay. And the new material we're going to assign, this is going to be kind of the wood part here. So that looks like wood. Now we're going to do E, click S, scale it out. Now we're going to create a new material. Click on the plus symbol, click on new. And let's give this kind of a nice green, assign. Now E, GZ, S. Just click Alt. So Alt click this in order to select that portion. And we're going to assign it that green. And do the same thing down here. Look up here. E, S, E, GZ, S, E, GZ, oops, S, E, GZ, S. It looks pretty decent for like a little tree. Now, what we could do is manually put this around, or we could use the hair effect. So let's just save what we currently have. So File, Save. Let's click on here. I'm now going to go into, let's see, particles. Yeah. No, sorry, that's physics. I want particles. Here we go. It's the constellation here. Click on the plus symbol. Then we're going to click on hair. So what we're going to see is we're going to see a bunch of hair strands, if maybe not. Z solid. Let's go back to animation, go to frame 0. Oh, let's go back to layout, camera view. Here, we have the particles, we have the number, viewport display. We want this to be as a render as path. What we want is as a object. I select that object. So we should probably name this as tree so we can actually find it. Go here, and we're going to find tree. Select the tree. Advance. Looks pretty good. Okay, so use solid. Okay, viewport display. So let's go into hair mode. So particle edit. And we're going to add. So we can't see them. Let's change the scale of this. You know what? This is too complicated. There you go. So there we go. So we have a tree right here. And what we can do is, let's just put it down here. We can just randomly just place this in a few locations just to kind of give it some extra dimension. Let's do here, GZ, Shift D, go over here. It doesn't need a whole lot. Again, this is just for, just to add something else. Zoom in here, GZ. Just gonna sputter around. Here, GZ. Let's go camera view. And now if I move the camera, G. Here, let's rotate this guy a little bit. This actually looks slightly different. G, move it over to this side. Shift D, let's say right there. Shift D again. G, Shift Z. G, so just kind of put it where you want. Shift D, G, Shift Z, G, Z. That looks pretty decent. Let's do G. Go back here. Let's just save this. And I think we are done with our little low poly world.